Hello everybody, it's me, Riffraff Hornhelm, and I'm back again with another presentation from the Dwarven Vault, and today we have a fail tale. And today's fail tale has to do with the subject of magical research. Now, when I'm talking about magical research, I'm talking about it for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition rules. So what you find essentially in the Player's Handbook and the First Dungeon Master's Guide. I'm saying it's a fail. There's a lot of beautifully detailed information in there talking about what's required to, as a magic user, so we're not talking about clerics now, just magic users, what's required for you to find and learn another spell. Now, there's lots of homebrew ways to overcome this. I have several myself. I do not use what's in the books, though I have. And the reason I'm doing today's video is I came across a dungeon I wrote back in the earliest days of D&D that had to do with the quest of a magic user and a couple of friends to do the research, obtain the various components, and take the time to actually learn a new spell for their spell book. And it was an existing spell. Technically, by the rules in 1E, you can also use this to invent spells. I've never done that part of it, though I have used invented spells. I never went through the whole shebang that they have in here. Now, one of the things that's really important to note about how magical research was done for wizards, and I say magic users, okay, and that included illusionists as well, by the way, was that it took forever. The length of time to learn the spell, do the research, was equal to the level of the spell in weeks. So if you were learning a 4th level spell, you were going to spend 4 weeks doing this. And you had to spend X amount of money. This is all detailed in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And it's a copious amount of stuff. And at the end of that time, you then made the attempt to actually complete the learning of the spell with the components that you had obtained and the actual, written material that you used as a basis for it. And you would try and then officially learn the spell. Even then, after all that, you had a percentage chance of success or failure. Now, the chance was really based on the level of the spell, your level, did you complete everything on the checklist, this kind of stuff. Then the level of the spell you were learning was deducted from the final percentage that you came up with, and you would roll percentile dice, and you either succeeded or failed. It's a really, really lengthy process. On top of all of this, and there's a lot of on top ofs, to me it's just crazy. The components that you needed, of course, were very expensive. And on various types of spells and so forth, you would need to have specific things in order to make it happen that were from mythical beasts, from things that were in the monster manual, stuff like, you need some venom from one of the heads from Medusa's head. You would always need something very, very strange, the eye of a something or another, much like you get from literature. But all very difficult and expensive and perhaps time consuming to obtain in order to do what you wanted to do next. To me, it's crazy the way it was set up. It was such a lengthy and detailed process. It did actually create a fairly decent dungeon for a low-level magic user who was on a quest to learn the spell invisibility. And all of that stuff comes back in spades when you look at doing things beyond just learning a spell. Now, all of the steps in here make it very difficult and lengthy and arduous and expensive to learn spells. Just plain and simple. And the interesting part about it is that at the very end of it, it says that under no circumstances should you make this easier for your players. They must go through every step in the process from start to finish. Uh, Sorry, Gary. No way. It takes way too long unless you're going to use it as a focal point for an adventure. It's much easier to take this kind of work and make it, so to speak, off-screen work that allows your player to get through a dungeon, and in the time between that adventure and his next adventure, he's able to make the adjustments that are necessary to get up to that level. In terms of that specific spell, if you know it exists, yeah, during that 2 years between adventures, you took care of it. Actually taking the time and working this as an adventure with any player that you have who's a magic user is going to drive both of you mad. So it's a huge fail as far as I'm concerned. Very cool, but a huge fail. It just takes too long. Now, take all of what I've just said and put this on top of a 1E mage who gets 1 to 4 hit points and has a dagger and no armor and maybe a spell. He's hopeful that Unearthed Arcana is coming out soon so he can get some cantrips instead. There is very little in a early magic user's repertoire, especially in terms of money, that would allow him to have the money, the funds necessary to learn more spells. If you were playing this very strict by the book, along with the rest of the fine attributes that a wizard had or a magic user had back at that time, I kind of wonder why you would even bother. You were almost certainly going to die. You were never going to learn anything fast enough to do you any good. It was a real downer, particularly for low-level magic users, and having this requirement on top of it all just was too much. So to me, that's a major fail of 1E, and magical research is something that seems to have been, for the most part, relegated to the dustbin of history, and I can't say that I'm upset about that part. For those of you who do want to play the full details on that, definitely take a look in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I think it's around page 110 to 120, somewhere in that range. And you'll be astonished. I mean, it's quite detailed. But I have to say, though I did this in the very earliest days of D&D, I'm not going to do this again. I think it's just way too much. It won't be fun. It'll just be tedious. So, that's today's fail tale. Magical research, how you got your next level spells when you were playing AD&D 1E. Hope you found today's presentation to be interesting, entertaining, all that kind of good stuff. If you did, please be so kind as to leave us a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't. Leave us a comment. Share with your friends. But most of all, please come back and see us again real soon. We very much appreciate your kind support. Take care, everyone, and remember, dwarves rock!